This is the home of the most colourful personality in South African art. Like so many outstanding artists, Irma Stern has been the subject of much controversy. But today she is regarded by many as one of the great modern artists of our century.
It's very redolent of early childhood memories. Because when we were very little, my mother says she used to stuff us into a double pram, a twin pram, and walk us along the main road to visit Irma.
I do have a sort of distinct sense of déjà vu here. There's enough about the garden that still seems to be the same. It was actually always a magical place.
I myself started painting at the age of about 3, I remember. I used to sit on the koppie up the farm and draw my grandmother. I really never stopped drawing. It's been always my intention to become a painter. Then I went to Weimar, in Berlin, into a studio, and found that only 2 academies in the whole of Germany would take women. I've walked out of my last studio with a big row. I painted my child, my eternal child, and the Professor Martin Brandenburg couldn't see eye to eye with me. And so I walked out, and I'm working on my own.
Well, The Eternal Child, from what I know, was painted in 1914, 1918, and she would never, ever, ever sell it. It meant a lot to her, and her whole background of those war years in Germany came through the expression of that picture.
Irma still lived in a world where gender inequity was pretty damn obvious. The realm of genius didn't reside with women, it resided with men. It was a struggle for her.
And Irma was quite confident in what she thought was right and criticised things, social things that went wrong. I mean, there's so much criticism written about her personality because she was not easy. She didn't suffer fools gladly. She was quite an egocentric lady.
Around about 1922, a certain WRM, writing in a Cape Town newspaper, said of your show, "One may be conversant and even sympathetic with modern art methods, but no serious attention need be paid to this attempt to startle the susceptibilities of Cape Town art lovers." Would you care to tell me something about those early pioneering days in the 20s and 30s in Cape Town and all the battles that you fought?
About 35 I started selling. I'd shown about 10 years without selling one thing and having always insults.
My twin sister Anne and I were intrigued particularly by her journals of her trip to Zanzibar. Our point of inspiration was a particular paragraph in the Zanzibar journal, where she said, in the Arab world, the women are regarded as having no souls. And realizing, of course, that this is a much more generic thing, not just the Arab world, but very broadly spread all over the world in terms of the position of women and their status within major religious traditions.
So I think also when she got to Zanzibar, she was someone who herself was very aware of the cultural inequities around gender, and her observation is an acknowledgement that women had harder lives. The Arab may marry 2 or more wives. The women do not count. They have no say in the men's lives. They are of no consequence, as the Arab believe that women have no souls.
There are these kind of anecdotes which very often colonial residents have about the local people, which are often based on very imperfect information. And it would really depend, I guess, on the extent to which the Zanzibaris were orthodox, because certainly in the Islamic world, it is absolutely standard for women to be regarded as having souls. Women played a very important part in the Prophet's life, and it's also perfectly possible that there's some sort of misunderstanding there.
What is the soul? What is this mysterious thing that women didn't have in Zanzibar? Obviously, one can say that the soul is used in a great variety of different ways, the term the soul, and it certainly has been annexed by groups wishing to dominate, to annex power and privilege, and it's useful, especially because the soul is something that one cannot touch, one cannot grasp, one cannot see, one can say one can maybe sense it, but it's not material. It's not a material thing, so it's very easily annexed by ideologies. So, what is soul? It's difficult to name and grasp. It comes from the word psyche, which in the Greek means to breathe. So it has something to do with life, breath, consciousness, perhaps. That strange and enigmatic subject that's always the most mysterious to us as human beings. Where does our consciousness arrive from? Where does it come from?
We are souls and we are eternal. Nothing ends with this temporary passage with this body which we need for the soul to do its job, which is primarily a cleansing of the soul in order to return to where it comes from.
But the soul is a complex thing. We tend to translate all these words from all these different cultures as soul, but sometimes the translation is bad because Westerners have a sort of standard concept of soul, which I think goes back to the Greeks, and the soul can be brought in to serve all these sort of explanatory purposes. The soul wanders during sleep, or the soul survives bodily death, and that's really the crucial thing about the soul in comparison with those other words we have, like mind and spirit and so on.
Yes, obviously women do have souls. When people say that, it is quite interesting that traditionally women have been symbols of the soul. So when they say that women don't have souls, it basically means they are denying them their souls and their traditional role, in a sense. It means they're usurping the role of the soul. The men are now the ones with the soul, which means to say that the soul is intellectual authority, whereas what the soul traditionally represents, which is more intuition, feeling, inspiration, creativity, that is being repressed.
And so we were fascinated by not only Irma herself and her experience of soul and making very soulful paintings, and we thought this was a great opportunity to investigate the idea of what is soul and what happens to you if you don't have a soul, and how does the idea of soul enhance your life.
Yeah, it's an old thing. I mean, in Greek times, women were also seen to as not having souls. So that's an old tradition. But I think she was picking up on the way in which women were being repressed, or perhaps the way in which women sort of knew their place.
Certainly East Africa was kind of wonderful for her. So she went and came back with wonderful pieces. She was open to these other cultures, and she wanted to explore, and she wanted to go and paint the people and meet the people, and so she taps into the local culture, and that's one of the great things she does.
Time has had its revenge in a way. We do value Irma's paintings, and they continue to gain huge prices on auctions in South Africa. So she's now seen as a very important South African painter. A painter like Irma perhaps always paints herself or himself while engaged in the act of painting someone else. It cannot be escaped, especially like Irma, who isn't seeking after detailed observational realism, but comes to her work from another angle, an emotional angle, so that we feel we really do understand something of the sitter's presence and inner life, the souls of the people she painted.
Well, she has a lot of soul, and she's also very expressionistic. She puts across feeling. She does everything that goes against the sort of rigidity of the intellectual understanding of the world, which became so prominent in the 20th century.
No good painter or sculptor has ever been concrete or realistic. They've always been abstract. True abstract art is strong.
I was at university. I often went to spend the weekend with her, and she said, I want to paint, won't you sit down? And painted. And so I sat down, as I was told to do, and she painted me. And in between sittings, we'd have to go for a little walk to the magnolia tree and roundabout.
Yeah, when I look at Irma's work, something reaches out to me from those paintings, whether they're watercolors or oil paintings. And there's a yearning that is timeless, that I want to connect with those faces that I see. I want to connect with those contexts, because I feel there's something universally accessible, even though there's a contextual reality that she was addressing. So it's timeless and it's universal in its appeal.
Well, I said I work exactly as I feel like, and I don't ever change a line. I just have to be concentrated the whole thing through, and it gives oneself a feeling of being elated. It should give that to the people too who look at it.
Nobody was allowed into the studio at all while she was painting. And often she would paint from early morning until late at night with her cigarettes, and sometimes brandy, and sometimes coffee.
But for me, being an artist is to see into the air, to see picture where is no picture. Then you draw. That's why they said when an artist is doing something, let's say when you're painting something, people mustn't come and talk to him, must leave him for a while. Because you are talking to the air, you see things into the air and you're drawing, you're coming down. So as this person, when I look at all this work in this house, she had a lot and strong of imagination in her head, of seeing things. The art, it tells the truth. You can look at these pieces, you see the truth of the person.
Oh, it's been wonderful. I mean, I have been here for nearly 40 years, and the combination of the house and the garden has a certain melancholic beauty, but there is just something so moody and wonderful. And also it's just generally the prettiest room in the house from a point of view of the proportions of the room and these two beautiful French doors that look out into the garden.
And I think that that connection with nature links to a lot of the artwork that Irma Stern did. You know, she really did paint nature. She was very in touch with the plants and the flamboyant visions that she made in her artwork. There's a sort of exoticism that comes through, not only in the people that she paints, but the plants that go with them.
And also recently we had some old wood cut out of the garden, and so there's more light in here. And so just generally it feels as though Irma's soul is soaring at the moment with the light touch in the studio. There is a certain timeless, haunting, aesthetic quality that just sort of invades the atmosphere.
I love this idea of Irma painting her clothing, that painting spilt out everywhere, it didn't stay on the canvases on the walls. In this house too, you see that she paints doorways, she paints her cupboards, she just goes for it. It's almost like the Bloomsbury group. They had a similar philosophy at a similar time, that life and art should interconnect, should hold hands, the one should spill into the other.
She was exhibiting at a strange gallery which no longer exists down on the foreshore. She found the exhibitions a bit of an ordeal, but was determined to be there. My first catching sight of her standing at the back of the gallery and sort of nervously kind of chain smoking and walking up and down and inspecting the people, that was sort of absolutely riveting and is my sort of enduring memory of her. For me, it was sort of part of my growing up, and Irma Stern was probably the most important of the artists.
Presence seems to me an important quality, and this house and the paintings still resonate with Irma's presence. And it made me think about the sense of presence one feels walking into this house, where although she's invisible, she still feels present. And her work still seems to produce a resonance of who she was at a soul level. She's still here.
Life has to be positive, and creation has to be positive. Good night.
Thank you.